There is a hydrangea in your garden right now that used to be blue, deep, rich, stunning blue when you brought it home from the nursery. But then the soil changed. Slowly, over 2 or 3 growing seasons, the blooms drifted toward pink or muddy purple or some washed out shade that is not what you planted and not what you wanted. You did not do anything wrong. The soil chemistry shifted on its own, and the fix is sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now. Nobody pays attention to what is happening in the soil beneath a hydrangea until the color changes. The plant looks perfectly healthy, the leaves are green, and the growth is strong. Everything above ground signals that the hydrangea is fine, but underground the chemistry has been shifting inch by inch, season by season, and by the time the blooms come out pink instead of blue, the change has been underway for 2 or 3 years without any visible warning. Understanding exactly how hydrangea color works at the molecular level changes everything about how you approach this problem, and it is more specific and more fascinating than the simple rule you probably learned. The shorthand version you hear everywhere is that acidic soil makes hydrangeas blue and alkaline soil makes them pink. That is not wrong, but it is incomplete, and the missing piece is the reason gardeners get frustrated when they try to fix the color and nothing happens fast enough. The actual mechanism involves a specific molecule, a specific mineral, and a chain of events that connects the soil chemistry to the pigment inside each individual petal cell. The pigment that creates color in big leaf hydrangea petals is called delphinidin. It is the exact same molecule that makes blueberries blue and gives dark grapes their deep purple-black color. In its natural, unmodified state, delphinidin absorbs light at wavelengths that make it appear pink to the human eye. That is its default color. A hydrangea petal containing plain delphinidin with nothing else attached to it looks pink. When aluminum ions from the soil bind to the delphinidin molecules inside the petal cells, they physically shift which wavelengths of light the molecule absorbs. The aluminum changes the physical shape of the delphinidin at a molecular level, and that shape change moves the color from pink to blue. The transformation is happening inside each individual cell of each individual petal. Every blue hydrangea floret you have ever seen is blue because aluminum atoms traveled from the soil through the roots, up through the stems, into the developing flower bud, and bonded with the delphinidin molecules waiting inside the petal tissue. Remove the aluminum from the equation and the delphinidin reverts to its default pink. Same flower, same pigment, same plant. The only variable is whether aluminum reached the petals or not. So the real question is not about the flower. The real question is about the soil. What determines whether aluminum gets from the ground into the petals? Soil pH. That is the connection point. Aluminum exists in virtually all garden soil. It is one of the most abundant elements in the Earth's crust. Your soil almost certainly has plenty of aluminum in it right now. The issue is not whether aluminum is present. The issue is whether it is in a form the roots can absorb. In acidic soil, roughly below pH 5.5, aluminum dissolves into a soluble form that moves freely through soil water. The roots take it up along with the water and nutrients they are already absorbing, and the aluminum travels to the flower buds where it bonds with delphinidin and creates blue. In alkaline soil, above pH 6.5, the same aluminum locks into insoluble mineral compounds that the roots cannot absorb. The aluminum is still in the soil, inches away from the roots, but it might as well not be there because the plant cannot access it. The delphinidin gets no aluminum and the blooms come out pink. The soil pH determines whether the gate between aluminum and the roots is open or closed. Vinegar opens the gate. Now here is why your blue hydrangea drifted pink even though you did nothing wrong. When you brought that hydrangea home from the garden center or nursery, it was growing in a commercial potting mix that is deliberately formulated to be acidic. The nursery wanted blue flowers on the sales floor because blue hydrangeas outsell pink ones. The potting mix delivered the low pH that kept aluminum available, and the blooms were a gorgeous blue when you planted it. Over the next 2 to 3 years, the surrounding garden soil gradually overrode the nursery potting mix. Tap water in most American communities is slightly alkaline, and every time you watered, you were nudging the soil pH upward. If your hydrangea is planted near a concrete foundation, lime leaches from the concrete into the soil and raises pH further. Decomposing wood ash from nearby fire pits or grills does the same thing. Limestone gravel in paths and driveways contributes calcium carbonate that pushes pH toward alkaline. None of these are gardening mistakes. They're just the normal chemistry of a suburban garden. The soil drifted alkaline gradually. The aluminum gate closed. The delphinidin stopped receiving aluminum, and the blooms shifted from blue through purple to pink over a few seasons. The plant did not change, the soil did. And that is the chemistry behind the fix. 1 cup of white distilled vinegar in 1 gallon of water. That is the recipe that reverses the drift and starts opening the aluminum gate again. White distilled vinegar is acetic acid with a pH around 2.5. Diluted in water at this ratio, it creates a mildly acidic solution that gently lowers the soil pH in the root zone over time. You are not shocking the soil or creating a chemical event. You are nudging the chemistry in the opposite direction from the alkaline drift that has been happening naturally for years. Pour the solution slowly around the base of your hydrangea, covering the entire root zone from the main stem outward to the drip line, which is the imaginary circle on the ground directly below the outermost branch tips. The drip line marks the approximate extent of the active root system, and you want the acidifying solution to reach all of those roots, not just the ones closest to the stem. For a mature hydrangea with a canopy spread of 4 to 5 feet, 1 gallon of diluted vinegar covers the root zone nicely. For a smaller plant in its second or third year, half a gallon is sufficient. The best time to apply is in the morning, after watering the plant, normally the day before. You want the soil already moist when the vinegar solution goes in, because the acetic acid disperses more evenly through damp soil than through dry soil. Pouring acidified water onto bone-dry ground concentrates the acid in a narrow channel rather than spreading it across the full root zone. A light watering the day before sets up the conditions for the best possible distribution. Apply this solution once every 2 to 3 weeks through the growing season, from spring through early fall. Consistency of vinegar application matters more than volume. A single heavy application followed by months of nothing is far less effective than regular, smaller applications that maintain a steady downward pressure on the pH. Think of it like steering a boat. Small, consistent corrections keep you on course. One dramatic yank of the wheel sends you off in the wrong direction. The color shift from this treatment is gradual and honest, and setting realistic expectations now saves you from frustration later. The blooms that are already open on your hydrangea right now will not change color. Their pigment was determined weeks ago when the flower buds were developing inside the plant. The delphinidin in those petals either received aluminum or it did not, and the color is locked in for this bloom cycle. Nothing you apply to the soil today will alter flowers that are already showing color. What the vinegar treatment affects is the next generation of flower buds. The buds forming right now inside the plant for next year's blooms, or on repeat blooming varieties like Endless Summer, the late season reblooms that develop on new growth later this summer. Some gardeners see a partial color shift in those late season reblooms during the first year of treatment. The full rich blue that you remember from the nursery typically returns over 1 to 2 growing seasons of consistent applications, depending on how far the soil pH had drifted toward alkaline before you started. Patience is genuinely part of this process. The soil did not turn alkaline overnight, and it will not turn acidic overnight either. Each vinegar application moves the needle a small amount, and the cumulative effect over months is what produces the visible color change. The first sign you will notice is that new flower buds developing on the plant take on a slightly different undertone than the current blooms. Instead of a clear pink, the developing buds may show hints of lavender or purple. That purple is the transition color, the midpoint where some aluminum is reaching the delphinidin, but not enough for full blue. Purple is progress. It means the treatment is working and the soil chemistry is moving in the right direction. Keep applying. You can check your progress with a simple soil pH test kit from any garden center. Test the soil in the root zone before you start your vinegar treatments and write down the number. Test again after 2 months of applications. If the pH has dropped by half a point or more, you are on track and the blue is coming. If the pH has barely moved, your soil has strong natural buffering, usually from high calcium or limestone content, and you may need to apply more frequently or consider switching to aluminum sulfate for faster results. There is a companion trick that works alongside the vinegar and costs you nothing if you drink coffee in the morning. Spent coffee grounds from your daily pot are mildly acidic and rich in organic matter that decomposes slowly on the soil surface. Spread a thin layer of used grounds, no more than half an inch deep, on the soil around your hydrangea once a month. Do not pile the grounds thick. Do not dig them into the soil. Just spread them on the surface and let them break down naturally over the following weeks. The coffee grounds serve a specific supporting role in this system. The vinegar makes the initial pH drop with each application, pushing the soil toward the acidic range, where aluminum becomes available. Between vinegar applications, the natural buffering capacity of your garden soil tries to push the pH back up toward its previous alkaline level. The coffee grounds, decomposing slowly and steadily on the surface, add a continuous low-level source of mild acidity that resists that bounce back. Vinegar pushes the pH down. Coffee grounds help hold it there between doses. Together, they create a more consistent acidic environment than either one achieves alone. One note on coffee grounds: use spent grounds only, not fresh, unused coffee. Fresh grounds are much more acidic and can affect the soil more aggressively than you want. The brewing process extracts much of the acid, and the spent grounds that come out of the filter are gentler and safer for direct soil application. If you do not drink coffee yourself, most coffee shops are happy to give away bags of spent grounds for free. Just ask at the counter. One technique covered, and the color is already shifting. The Flower Gardener's Bible has the full seasonal calendar for all 38 flowering plants. $9 at bloomrelay.co. If you want faster results than vinegar provides, and you are comfortable with a more concentrated amendment, aluminum sulfate is available at every garden center and does the same job more aggressively. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of aluminum sulfate in 1 gallon of water and apply around the root zone monthly through the growing season. Aluminum sulfate has a double action that vinegar cannot match. It both lowers the soil pH and adds aluminum directly to the soil solution at the same time. With vinegar, you are lowering the pH to unlock the aluminum that is already in your soil. With aluminum sulfate, you are lowering the pH and adding more aluminum on top of what is already there. The color shift is visible within 1 growing season rather than 2. The reason aluminum sulfate works faster is worth understanding. Vinegar relies on an indirect pathway. The acetic acid lowers the pH, which dissolves native soil aluminum into a soluble form, which the roots then absorb and deliver to the flower buds. Every step in that chain takes time, and the amount of aluminum the roots ultimately receive depends on how much native aluminum your soil contains and how efficiently the roots absorb it. Aluminum sulfate skips the middle steps by delivering soluble aluminum directly to the root zone alongside the pH reduction. The roots receive both the acidic conditions they need and a direct supply of the mineral that creates blue, all in one application. The trade-off is risk. Aluminum sulfate can burn roots and damage soil biology if you exceed the recommended application rate. Follow the package directions precisely. More is not better with this product. A double dose does not produce twice the blue. It produces root damage that weakens the plant and can cause leaf scorch, wilting, and reduced flowering the following season. Signs of over-application include browning leaf edges, premature leaf drop, and stunted new growth in the weeks after treatment. If you see any of these symptoms, stop applications immediately and flush the root zone with several deep waterings of plain water to dilute the concentration. Vinegar is gentler and slower with virtually no risk of plant damage at the recommended dilution. Aluminum sulfate is faster and more dramatic but requires more care and more respect for the dosage. Both methods work. Choose based on your patience level and your comfort with concentrated soil amendments. Many gardeners start with vinegar for the first season and switch to aluminum sulfate if the pH is not moving fast enough. That approach gives you the safety of the gentle method first, with the option to escalate if your soil is strongly buffered against pH change. If you're finding this useful and you grow flowering shrubs, hit subscribe. There is a new video every week on seasonal garden care, plant science explained in plain language, and practical techniques you can use the same day you watch. Now, before you pour vinegar around every hydrangea in your yard, you need to know which ones will respond and which ones will completely ignore it, because this trick only works on specific hydrangea species, and the reason is genetic, not environmental. Only big leaf hydrangeas, the species called Hydrangea macrophylla, and mountain hydrangeas, Hydrangea serrata, contain delphinidin in their petals. These are the two species that shift between blue and pink on soil chemistry. You can identify them by their flower shape. Big leaf hydrangeas produce either round mop-head flower clusters, the classic big spherical heads, or flat lace cap clusters, where tiny fertile flowers in the center are surrounded by a ring of larger sterile florets around the edge. Both of these flower forms contain delphinidin and both respond to the aluminum shift. Panicle hydrangeas, the ones sold under names like Limelight, Little Lime, and Pinky Winky, produce cone-shaped flower clusters that start white or green and age to pink or rose over the season. Their petals do not contain delphinidin. They use entirely different pigment compounds that do not interact with aluminum at all. No amount of vinegar, aluminum sulfate, or any other soil amendment will turn a limelight blue, because the molecule responsible for blue does not exist in the flower. The color change mechanism is simply absent from the genetics of panicle hydrangeas. Smooth hydrangeas, the type sold as Annabelle or Incredible, produce large, round, white snowball clusters. Same situation, no delphinidin in the petals and no response to aluminum or soil pH changes of any kind. The white color stays white regardless of what you do to the soil. Oak-leaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea quercifolia, are another common garden species that does not respond to pH changes. Their cone-shaped white flower clusters age to pink and then parchment brown, and the color transition is driven by natural pigment aging inside the petals, not by aluminum or soil chemistry. The beautiful fall foliage color on oak leaf varieties is also genetically fixed. No soil amendment changes it. Think of it this way. Trying to turn a panicle hydrangea blue with vinegar is like trying to dye a cotton shirt with a dye that only bonds to silk. The chemistry requires a specific receptor in the material, and if that receptor does not exist, the reaction cannot happen. Delphinidin is the receptor. Only big leaf and mountain hydrangeas have it. If you are not sure which type you have, look at the flower shape and the leaves together. Round mop heads and flat lace caps growing on a shrub with broad, glossy, smooth-edged leaves are big leaf hydrangeas, and they respond to pH changes. Cone-shaped clusters on woody stems with narrower, more textured leaves are panicle hydrangeas, and they do not respond. Large, white, rounded clusters on a shrub with very smooth, heart-shaped leaves are smooth hydrangeas, and they do not respond. Cone-shaped white clusters on a shrub with large, deeply lobed oak-shaped leaves are oak leaf hydrangeas, and they do not respond. That visual check takes 10 seconds and saves you a season of wasted vinegar on a plant whose genetics cannot use it. Here is a detail that fascinates gardeners once they understand the chemistry well enough to notice it. Sometimes individual flower heads on the same hydrangea plant show different colors within a single cluster. Some florets are blue, some are pink, some are purple, and they are all growing on the same branch from the same stem. This is not a defect or a sign that something is wrong. The root system of a mature hydrangea spans a wide area underground, and the soil pH can vary across just a few inches. One side of the root ball might sit in slightly more acidic soil where aluminium is available. The other side might sit in slightly more alkaline soil near a concrete path or a limestone edge where aluminium is locked up. The florets, fed by roots drawing from the acidic side, receive aluminium and turn blue. The florets, fed by roots in the alkaline zone, get no aluminum and stay pink. The result is a multicolored flower head that is actually a living map of the pH variation in the soil directly beneath the plant. Evening out the pH across the entire root zone with consistent vinegar applications, making sure you pour the solution all the way from the stem to the drip line in every direction, gradually produces uniform color across all the florets on every flower head. The more consistent the soil chemistry beneath the plant, the more consistent the bloom color across every cluster on the shrub. Everything described so far works in the opposite direction if your goal is pink instead of blue. The chemistry is the same mechanism running in reverse. If you have a hydrangea blooming blue and you want pink blooms, you need to raise the soil pH into the alkaline range, where aluminum locks up and the delphinidin reverts to its default pink color. Apply garden lime around the base of the plant according to the package rate. Lime is calcium carbonate, the same compound that has been naturally drifting your soil toward alkaline through tap water and concrete leaching. Adding it intentionally simply accelerates that drift. For a gentler, slower approach, save your eggshells. Crush them into a fine powder using a mortar and pestle, a food processor, or a rolling pin over a Ziploc bag. The finer the powder, the faster the calcium carbonate dissolves into the soil. Whole eggshell halves placed on the surface decompose so slowly they have almost no measurable effect on pH within a growing season. Powder works. Chunks do not. Sprinkle the eggshell powder on the soil surface around your hydrangea once a month. The calcium carbonate nudges the pH upward gradually, the same way coffee grounds hold the pH downward on the blue side. Stop all acidifying amendments, stop the coffee grounds, and within 1 to 2 seasons, the blooms shift toward pink. The same hydrangea plant can go from blue to pink and back again multiple times over its lifetime, depending on what you put in the soil. The plant does not care which color it displays. It produces delphinidin regardless. Whether that delphinidin binds with aluminum or not depends entirely on decisions you make about soil chemistry. You are the one choosing the color. The plant just follows the chemistry. A gardener who wants blue one year and pink the next can achieve exactly that, though the transition takes a season in each direction because the soil chemistry needs time to shift. A big leaf hydrangea is one of the most accurate living soil pH indicators in the garden world. Blue blooms tell you the soil is acidic, roughly below pH 5.5. Pink blooms tell you the soil is alkaline, above pH 6.5. Purple or muddy mixed color blooms tell you the pH is sitting right in the transition zone around 6 to 6.5, where some aluminum is available, but not enough for full blue. If you see different flower heads on the same plant blooming in different colors, some blue and some pink and some purple, the soil pH is uneven across the root zone. One side of the root ball is sitting in more acidic conditions than the other, often because of proximity to a concrete walkway or a different soil type on one side. Applying your vinegar solution evenly across the entire root zone in every direction equalizes the pH and produces uniform color across all the blooms. Once you start thinking of your hydrangea as a pH meter with petals, you notice things about your garden soil that were invisible before. A hydrangea near the driveway blooming pink while one across the yard blooms blue tells you the driveway side has more alkaline soil, probably from limestone base material in the pavement. A single plant blooming blue on the garden side and pink on the foundation side tells you the concrete is leaching lime into the soil on that side. The flowers are reading the soil chemistry in real time and displaying the results in color. Every shift you see is information about what is happening underground. 2 important safety rules before you start pouring anything around your hydrangea, and both of them matter enough that skipping them can undo the entire effort. First, never apply undiluted vinegar directly to the soil. Pure white vinegar at a pH of 2.5 is strong enough to damage fine roots and kill beneficial soil organisms, including the mycorrhizal fungi that help your hydrangea absorb nutrients efficiently. The 1 cup per gallon dilution is specifically chosen to lower pH gradually without harming the plant or the living soil biology that supports it. Stronger is not faster in this case. Stronger is destructive. Second, do not apply vinegar and aluminum sulfate at the same time. Using both simultaneously can crash the soil pH too low too fast, creating an acid shock that damages roots and stresses the plant. Choose one method and be consistent with it. If you start with vinegar and later decide to switch to aluminum sulfate for faster results, stop the vinegar applications and wait 2 to 3 weeks before beginning the sulfate treatments. Give the soil time to stabilize between approaches. One additional rule for new plantings: do not apply any pH amendments to a hydrangea in its first year in the ground. Let the roots establish, let the plant settle into its new location, and let it build the root network it needs to handle soil chemistry adjustments comfortably. Start your vinegar or sulfate treatments in the second growing season when the root system is strong enough to process the changing chemistry without stress. 1 cup of white vinegar in 1 gallon of water, poured around the base of your big leaf hydrangea every 2 to 3 weeks through the growing season. That is the entire kitchen trick. The blue comes back gradually over 1 to 2 seasons as the soil shifts acidic and the aluminum gate opens again for the roots. Spread spent coffee grounds on the surface monthly to hold the pH between applications. And check your flower shape before you start, because only mop heads and lace caps contain the delphinidin molecule that responds to aluminum. The soil drifted your hydrangea from blue to pink slowly, one watering and one season at a time. The vinegar drifts it back the same way, one application at a time in the other direction. Start your vinegar treatments today, and by next summer the color shift will be visible in every bloom. What color are your hydrangeas right now? Tell me in the comments. And if you have shifted a hydrangea from pink to blue or blue to pink using any method, share what you used and how many seasons it took, because that real-world timeline from your garden and your specific soil type is more valuable than any formula in a book.